The great hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Ambassador Tejo stood at the center podium, his black suit a sharp contrast against the colorful alien delegates surrounding him. His voice was calm and clear as he spoke the words that would change everything. The United Earth government officially ends all diplomatic relations with the Galactic Coalition. We are withdrawing from all treaties, trade agreements, and military pacts effective immediately. The silence that followed was deafening. Then chaos erupted. Fleet Commander Cathera of the Vex jumped to her feet, her insect-like wings buzzing in agitation. This is madness. You cannot simply abandon 50 years of peace. Prime Crystal Nexon of the Karathi pulsed with angry red light. Explain yourself, human. What has changed? Other voices joined in from across the chamber. The bird-like Alterans screeched their protests while the massive Grome delegates rumbled their disapproval. Tejo stood perfectly still in the center of it all, waiting for the noise to die down. We have other priorities now, he said simply. Good day. The human ambassador turned and walked toward the exit. His small escort of human diplomats followed silently behind him. As the doors closed, the alien delegates stared in stunned disbelief. In the military command centers across Coalition space, similar scenes were playing out. Admiral Su Jin sat in her office aboard the UES Determination, composing her final report to Coalition Command. Her fingers moved steadily across the keyboard as she typed the orders that would recall every human ship from joint operations. All human vessels are to withdraw from Sectors 7 through 23 immediately, she announced to her staff. Begin Operation Homecoming. Every soldier, every ship, every piece of human equipment comes home. Commander Jin Woo looked confused. Admiral, we have 17 joint bases across those sectors. The Coalition forces depend on us for... That is no longer our concern, Su Jin interrupted. Execute the orders. On the frontier world of Kepler 442b, General Bin Woo oversaw the evacuation of Fort Morrison, humanity's largest military base, outside Earth space. The base had stood for 30 years, a symbol of human commitment to galactic peace. Now it was being methodically dismantled. Sir, the Vex commander is requesting a meeting, reported Colonel Ye-jin. She wants to know why we're leaving so suddenly. Bin Woo watched as human soldiers loaded equipment onto transport ships. Tell her we have new orders, nothing more. The evacuation was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Humans didn't argue or negotiate. They simply packed up and left. Mining stations were abandoned with equipment still running. Research facilities were vacated overnight, leaving behind years of work. Trading posts that had operated for decades closed their doors without explanation. Dr. Ari packed her laboratory on the science station orbiting Proxima Centauri. Her research partner, a Karathi named Velnara, watched in confusion as she sealed boxes of data crystals. But our project on quantum archaeology, Velnara said, her crystal body flickering with distress. We were so close to a breakthrough. Ari smiled sadly. The work will continue, just not here. She left a small note on her desk and walked out carrying only a single bag. Back on Earth, President Kyung-min addressed the human population in a rare public broadcast. His message was brief and mysterious. Citizens of Earth, he began. Today marks the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. We are coming home. All of us. Trust in the plan that has been 50 years in the making. The response from human colonies was immediate and coordinated. On Mars, Governor Sora ordered the evacuation of all research facilities. On Europa, Director Wu Sung began shutting down the ice mining operations. Even the generation ships exploring the outer rim turned around and headed back toward Earth space. What puzzled the aliens most was how prepared the humans seemed. This wasn't a hasty decision made in anger. Every withdrawal was planned down, to the smallest detail. Transport ships appeared exactly when and where they were needed. Personnel moved with military precision, as if they had been rehearsing for years. Captain Dongsu of Vex Intelligence watched human activities from his hidden observation post near Jupiter. His ship had been monitoring Earth space for months, but now he saw something that made his compound eyes widen in shock. Human ships were arriving from everywhere, not just from Coalition space, but from unknown regions beyond the galactic rim. "Where have they been hiding all these ships?" and he muttered to his aide. The aide, a younger Vex named Crichtal, clicked nervously. "Sir, our databases show no record of these vessel configurations. Some of these ships, they don't match any human design we know." On the Coalition worlds, panic was beginning to set in. Trade routes that had depended on human transportation suddenly had no ships. Colonies that relied on human-manufactured goods found their supply lines cut. Scientific projects that had taken decades to plan were left incomplete as human researchers vanished. The Alteran Trade Minister called an emergency session. "This is economic warfare," she screeched. "They're trying to collapse our supply chains." But the humans weren't threatening anyone. They were simply gone. All attempts to contact Earth were met with polite automated messages stating that diplomatic channels were no longer available. Trade requests were declined without explanation. Even personal messages to human friends went unanswered. Admiral Sujin's fleet reached Earth space after 3 weeks of travel. As her ship approached the blue and white world, she felt a strange mix of relief and anticipation. The plan was working perfectly. Every human in the galaxy was coming home, and soon they would be ready for the next phase. General Binwu's transport landed at a military facility in the Colorado Mountains. The base was bustling with activity as returning personnel were processed and assigned to new duties. But these weren't the old duties of maintaining galactic peace. Something much bigger was happening. Dr. Ari arrived at a research complex, hidden beneath the Antarctic ice. As she walked through corridors filled with technology she had never seen before, she marveled at how long humanity had been preparing for this moment. The work they had been doing in Coalition space had been important, but it was nothing compared to what awaited them here. President Kyung-min met with his advisors in a secure bunker deep beneath Seoul. The room was filled with displays showing the status of the withdrawal. Every human was accounted for. Every piece of critical technology had been recovered. Phase 1 was complete. "How are our alien friends taking the news?" Kyung-min asked his intelligence chief. "Badly, sir," came the reply. "They're confused, angry, and starting to panic. Some are talking about sending fleets to demand explanations." Kyung-min nodded calmly. "Let them talk. Soon it won't matter what they do." Ambassador Taeho returned to Earth and went straight to a briefing room where the real leaders of humanity were waiting. These weren't politicians or generals, but scientists and engineers who had been working on humanity's greatest secret for half a century. "The aliens suspect nothing," he reported. "They think we're having some kind of political crisis or economic collapse. They have no idea what we've really been building." The lead scientist, Dr. Minho, smiled. "Good. By the time they figure it out, it will be far too late to stop us." As the last human transport ships reached Earth space, the galaxy was left with an empty feeling. Thousands of worlds that had grown accustomed to human presence now felt strangely quiet. The aliens told themselves that the humans would come back, that this was just politics as usual. They were wrong. In the depths of Earth's oceans, in hidden facilities beneath mountains and ice, in space stations invisible to alien sensors, humanity was preparing for something that would change everything. The 50-year truce had served its purpose. They had learned everything they needed to learn about their alien neighbors. Now it was time to leave them all behind. 3 months had passed since the humans walked away from everything. The galaxy felt different now, quieter in ways that made the alien species uncomfortable. Trade ships traveling through what used to be human space reported strange findings that nobody could explain. Captain Veltar of the Karathi merchant vessel Crystal Wind was the first to document what everyone was starting to whisper about. His ship had stopped at mining station Omega-7 in the asteroid belt around Kepler 186. The station should have been empty, abandoned like everything else the humans had left behind. But it wasn't empty. Not exactly. "The mining equipment is still running," Veltar reported to his crew, his crystal body pulsing with confusion. "The automated systems are pulling ore from asteroids and refining it, but there's nobody here to operate it." His engineer, a young Karathi named Silara, checked the readings twice. Sir, the station is producing refined metals at peak efficiency, better than when the humans were here. How is that possible? The same scene was playing out across dozens of star systems. Human research stations continued their experiments without researchers. Orbital farms kept growing food that nobody would harvest. Terraforming equipment worked day and night on dead worlds, slowly making them suitable for life that would never come on. Proxima Station, Dr. Velnara tried to make sense of what her former partner had left behind. Dr. Aries' laboratory was empty of personal items, but all the equipment was still running. Experiments that should have failed without supervision were somehow progressing perfectly. This doesn't make sense, Velnara muttered, checking the quantum archaeology project they had been working on together. The readings showed progress that should have been impossible without daily adjustments. Nobody can run these experiments by remote control. The quantum fields are too unstable. But the experiments were running, and they were working better than when Irie had been there, in person. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions every week, but nobody had answers. Fleet Commander Cathera of the Vex paced back and forth in front of the gathered delegates, her wings buzzing with agitation. We sent probe ships to 17 different human colonies, she reported. All of them are the same, empty but operational. It's like the humans just vanished into thin air, but left their machines behind to continue working. Prime Crystal Nexon of the Karathi flickered with deep concern. Our trade networks are starting to collapse. We depended on human transportation for 40% of our interstellar commerce. Without their ships, goods aren't moving between systems. The Alteran Trade Minister spread her wings in distress. My people are already rationing manufactured goods. The humans were our primary source of advanced electronics. Now we have warehouses full of raw materials but no way to process them into finished products. But the strangest reports were yet to come. Deep space monitoring stations began picking up signals from regions that should have been empty. Not distress calls or communication attempts, but something else entirely. Energy readings that didn't match any known technology. Ships that appeared on sensors for brief moments before vanishing completely. Captain Dong-Su had been promoted to lead a special intelligence mission into the heart of former human space. His orders were simple: find out what the humans were really doing and report back immediately. His ship, the Stinger, was the most advanced stealth vessel the Vex had ever built. It could slip past any known detection system and observe targets, without being seen. But as they entered the Sol system, Dong-Su began to doubt his equipment. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures from Earth," reported his sensor operator, Kriktal. "But I can't identify the source. The readings don't match anything in our databases." Earth looked normal from a distance. The same blue and white, marble it had always been. But as they got closer, Dong-Su could see that something was very different. Ships were moving in Earth's orbital space. Ships unlike anything he had ever seen before. "Those aren't human designs," he whispered, staring at the display. "At least not any human ships we know about." The vessels were sleek and smooth, with curves that seemed to bend light around them. They moved through space in ways that defied physics, changing direction without slowing down, accelerating without visible propulsion systems. "Sir, we're being scanned," Kriktal announced nervously. Dong-Su felt his stomach drop. "Impossible. We're completely stealthed. Nothing should be able to detect us, but something had." A calm, pleasant voice spoke directly into their ship's communication system, bypassing all security protocols. "Greetings, Vex Intelligence Vessel Stinger. You are entering restricted space. Please update your diplomatic credentials with the appropriate authorities and try again." "What authorities?" Dong-Su demanded. "There are no human diplomatic authorities anymore. Please contact your system administrator for further assistance. Thank you for your cooperation." The communication ended. Despite all their advanced technology, despite their perfect stealth systems, they had been detected, identified, and politely asked to leave. And there was nothing they could do about it. Similar encounters were happening throughout human space. Ships that should have been invisible were being spotted by systems that shouldn't exist. Messages that couldn't be traced were being sent to alien vessels, always polite but always firm. Humans were no longer available for contact. Dr. A. Ree worked in her new laboratory beneath the Antarctic ice, surrounded by technology that made her old coalition research look like children's toys. The quantum archaeology project she had been working on with Velnara was nothing compared to what humanity was doing now. "How long have we been building this?" she asked Dr. Minho as they walked through corridors filled with machines that bent space and time. 50 years, Minho replied. Ever since the truce was signed, every human who went to work in coalition space was also gathering intelligence. Every joint research project taught us about alien limitations. Every diplomatic meeting showed us their weaknesses. The scale was incredible. Hidden beneath Earth's surface was a network of facilities that stretched across continents. Underground cities where millions of humans worked on projects that would have been impossible during the war. Manufacturing centers that could produce materials atom by atom. Research labs that studied the fundamental forces of reality itself. Admiral Sujin stood in the command center of Earth's new orbital defense network. The stations were invisible to alien sensors, hidden by technology that folded space around them. From here, she could monitor every alien ship within 100 light years. "Ma'am, we're tracking 3 more probe ships trying to enter the system," reported Commander Jinwoo. "Altaran this time." Standard response, Sujin ordered. Polite but firm. No violence unless they become aggressive. The human strategy was working perfectly. The aliens were confused and frustrated, but they weren't angry enough to start a war. They kept sending probe ships and intelligence missions, hoping to understand what had happened to their human neighbors. But every mission came back with the same report. The humans were still there, but they were no longer interested in talking. President Kyung-min reviewed the reports from around the galaxy with satisfaction. Trade was collapsing in some sectors as alien species struggled to replace human services. Scientific projects were stalling without human expertise. Military alliances were becoming strained as former allies argued about how to respond to humanity's withdrawal. "Phase 2 is ready to begin," reported his science advisor. "All personnel are in position. All systems are operational." Kyung-min nodded. The hardest part was over. Getting every human out of coalition space without triggering a war had been risky. But now they were safe, hidden, and ready to take the next step. General Binwoo trained with his soldiers in facilities that existed partially outside normal space. The technology was difficult to understand, but the results were amazing. His troops could move between locations instantly, appear and disappear at will, and operate equipment that responded to their thoughts. "This is what we were really preparing for during the truce," he explained to his officers. "Not just to defend ourselves, but to become something new. Something the aliens could never imagine." As the months passed, the alien species grew more desperate. Some tried to rebuild the supply chains that humans had abandoned. Others attempted to recreate human technology from scratch. A few even suggested military action to force the humans back to the negotiating table. But deep in their hearts, they all knew something fundamental had changed. The humans hadn't just walked away from their responsibilities. They had walked away from everything the galaxy thought they knew about reality itself. And somewhere in the hidden facilities beneath Earth's surface, humanity was preparing to show them just how wrong they had been about everything. 2 years had passed since humanity vanished from galactic society. The alien species had tried to adapt, to fill the gaps left behind, but strange reports kept coming in from the edges of known space. Reports that made no sense and frightened even the most experienced explorers. Commander Zileth of the Altaran Deep Space Survey was the first to document what would later be called the impossible constructions. Her ship, Wind Dancer, had been mapping empty systems beyond the galactic rim when they discovered something that challenged everything they knew about engineering. "Captain's log, stardate 2387.156. She spoke into her recorder, her feathered crest trembling with excitement and fear. "We have encountered artificial structures in the void sector, approximately 2,000 light-years from any known civilization. The objects are massive beyond description." Through the view screen, her crew stared at structures that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. They looked like enormous rings made of some unknown metal, rotating slowly around previously empty space. Energy readings showed power outputs that should have been impossible for any technology they knew. "Ma'am, we're detecting life signs," reported her navigator, Cretan. "Thousands of them. but there shouldn't be anything here that can support life. Zealith checked the readings herself. The area around the ring structures showed atmospheric conditions that could support multiple species, but there were no planets, no space stations, nothing that could create such an environment. It was as if someone had built atmosphere in empty space. "Get us closer," she ordered, "but maintain full shields and weapons ready." As Wind Dancer approached the nearest ring, they could see smaller structures attached to its surface. Buildings that seemed to grow from the metal itself, shaped in ways that hurt to look at directly. And moving between them were figures in environmental suits that looked disturbingly familiar. "Those are human," whispered Creton. "But what are humans doing out here? How did they even get here?" Before Zilith could answer, their communication system activated. A calm human voice spoke to them in perfect Alteran. "Welcome to construction. Site Alpha 7. Please state your business and maintain a safe distance from all work areas." Zilith found her voice after a moment of shock. "This is Commander Zilith of the Alteran Deep Space Survey. We're conducting a mapping mission. What is this place?" "This is a habitat construction project. We apologize, but this area is restricted to authorized personnel only. Please update your clearance codes or contact the appropriate authorities." "What? Authorities? What habitat project? How did you build all this?" The voice remained polite but unhelpful. "Thank you for your interest. Have a pleasant day." The communication ended, leaving Wind Dancer's crew in stunned silence. Similar discoveries were being made throughout the outer regions of the galaxy. Vex exploration teams found mining operations on asteroids that shouldn't exist, extracting materials from empty space. Karathi scientists detected energy signatures that suggested entire star systems were being moved from their original positions. Back in Coalition space, the reports created panic among the leadership. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council became daily events as delegates tried to understand what humanity was really doing. Fleet Commander Cathera slammed her clawed hand on the conference table. "They're building something out there, something huge. Our deep space arrays are picking up massive energy outputs from regions that should be empty." Prime Crystal Nexon pulsed with angry red light. "We've lost contact with 17 exploration missions, all in areas where human activity has been reported. This is no coincidence." The Grome delegate, a massive creature named Throckmar, rumbled his concerns. "Our people speak of ships that appear from nowhere, then vanish again. Ships that move, without engines that travel faster than light should allow." Dr. Velnara had spent months trying to contact her former research partner, Dr. Ari. Every message went unanswered. Every attempt to trace her location failed. But recently, she had started receiving data packets from unknown sources. Research results that continued their old quantum archaeology project, but at a level of sophistication that should have been impossible. "These calculations," she muttered to herself in her laboratory, "they're solving problems we didn't even know existed. Ari, what have you become involved in?" The data showed techniques for manipulating space-time that went far beyond anything the Coalition species had imagined. Not just theoretical physics, but practical applications. Instructions for building, machines that could fold space, create matter from energy, even manipulate gravity itself. On Earth, Dr. Ari worked in facilities that existed partially outside normal reality. The quantum archaeology project she had shared with Velnara now seemed like a child's toy compared to what humanity was accomplishing. They weren't just studying the past anymore. They were creating new futures. "The aliens are starting to notice our construction projects," she reported to Dr. Minho during their weekly briefing. "Should we be concerned?" Minho smiled as he reviewed reports from human teams scattered across the galaxy. "Let them notice. By the time they understand what they're seeing, it will be far too late to stop us." The scope of humanity's activities was staggering. In hidden dimensions accessible only through technology the aliens couldn't comprehend, humans were building entire civilizations. Cities that existed in folded space where thousands of people lived and worked in areas no larger than a closet when viewed from normal reality. Explorer Hyun Woo supervised the construction of Habitat Ring Gamma 12, a structure that would house 10 million humans in a space the size of a small moon, but the ring itself existed in 7 different dimensions simultaneously, making it appear much smaller to outside observers. Status report, he called to his construction team. Engineer So Young checked her readings. Dimensional anchors are stable. Gravity generators are operating at full capacity. We should be ready for the first wave of colonists next month. Excellent. How many more rings do we need to complete Phase 3? Another 47, sir. But at our current construction rate, we'll be finished ahead of schedule. Hyunwoo nodded with satisfaction. Humanity had learned well from their time in coalition space. Every alien species had limitations, physical, technological, and mental, barriers that prevented them from growing beyond their current level. But humans had no such barriers. They simply adapted, evolved, and transcended whatever tried to contain them. Admiral Soo-jin monitored alien activities from her command post in Earth's orbital defense network. The stations were now completely invisible to alien sensors, existing in dimensions that the coalition species couldn't even detect. Ma'am, we're tracking increased military activity in sectors 12 through 18, reported Commander Jin-woo. It looks like they're preparing for something big. Let them prepare, Soo-jin replied calmly. Their weapons can't hit targets they can't perceive, and they can't perceive anything operating in higher dimensional space. The truth was becoming clear to humanity's leaders. The 50-year truce hadn't just been about keeping peace. It had been about learning the limits of their former enemies. Every joint military exercise had taught humans about alien technology. Every diplomatic meeting had revealed alien psychology. Every scientific collaboration had shown them the barriers that kept other species trapped at their current level of development. And now, armed with that knowledge, humanity was moving beyond those limitations entirely. General Bin-woo trained his soldiers in facilities that bent space and time. His troops could now step from Earth to any point in the galaxy instantly. They could phase between dimensions, becoming invisible and untouchable to conventional weapons. Most importantly, they could operate technology that responded to human thought and creativity in ways that alien minds simply couldn't comprehend. Remember, he told his officers, we're not preparing for war. We're preparing for transcendence. The aliens may try to force us back into their limited reality, but that reality no longer applies to us. President Kyung-min reviewed the final preparations for Phase 3. Millions of humans were now living and working in habitats that existed partially outside normal space. Earth itself was being slowly moved into a higher dimensional pocket, where it would be safe from any threat the galaxy could produce. Are our people ready? He asked his science advisor. More than ready, sir. The children born in the new habitats are already showing capabilities that amaze our researchers. They can perceive and manipulate dimensions that previous generations couldn't even imagine. As alien exploration teams continued to stumble across human construction projects, the reports grew more desperate. Ships that vanished when approached, structures that seemed to exist and not exist simultaneously, human figures who could walk through solid matter as if it weren't there. Captain Dong-soo filed his final intelligence report from the edge of human space. His ship had been monitoring construction activities for months, but what he had witnessed defied all attempts at explanation. Command, this is Stinger 1. The humans aren't just building in space anymore. They're building space itself. I've watched them create star systems from nothing, then move them to different locations. I've seen ships that are bigger inside than outside. I've witnessed humans walking between planets without any form of transportation. 3 years of silence ended on a Tuesday morning when Ambassador Taeho appeared on every communication screen in Coalition space simultaneously. But he wasn't speaking from the familiar chambers of the Galactic Council, or even from Earth. The background behind him showed structures that made alien scientists question the laws of physics itself. Behind Taeho, crystalline towers twisted through dimensions that shouldn't exist, their surfaces reflecting light that came from no visible source. Gravity seemed to work differently there. Streams of water flowed upward and objects moved in impossible curves through the air. Most disturbing of all, the space itself appeared to be larger inside than outside, stretching into distances that hurt alien minds to contemplate. Greetings to our former colleagues in the Galactic Coalition, Tejo began, his voice carrying the same calm tone he had used 3 years earlier. We apologize for our absence, but we have been occupied with more pressing matters. In the council chambers, delegates from dozens of species stared at their screens in shock. Fleet Commander. Kithra's wings buzzed so rapidly they became a blur. Prime Crystal Nexon flashed through colors that had no names in any alien language. The massive Grome delegate Throckmar actually took a step backward, something witnesses had never seen him do. "Where are you?" Kithera demanded, though she knew he couldn't hear her. "What is that place?" Tejo continued as if answering her question. "We are speaking to you from Nexus Prime, one of our newer habitats. What you see behind me represents a small sample of what humanity has accomplished during our absence from galactic affairs." The camera angle shifted, revealing more impossible architecture. Buildings that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, their walls transparent from one angle but solid from another. Gardens where plants grew in spirals through empty air, their roots drawing nutrients from folded space itself. And everywhere, humans moved with casual ease through an environment that should have killed them instantly. "During the 50 years of our truce," Tejo explained, "humanity learned a great deal about our galactic neighbors. We studied your technologies, your societies, your limitations. Most importantly, we learned about the barriers that prevent your species from growing beyond your current level of development." Dr. Velnara watched the broadcast from her laboratory, her crystal body flickering with a mixture of excitement and terror. The quantum archaeology data she had been receiving made sense now. Her former partner wasn't just continuing their research. She was operating on a level that Karathi science couldn't even comprehend. "These barriers," Tejo continued, "are not just technological. They are psychological, philosophical, and dimensional. Your species think in terms of planets and star systems, of resources to be conquered and territory to be defended. Humanity has moved beyond such limitations." The scene behind him shifted again, showing what appeared to be the construction of a new star. Not the slow nuclear process that took billions of years, but deliberate engineering. Streams of matter and energy flowed according to human will, forming solar bodies that burned with colors that didn't exist in nature. Admiral Su Jin appeared next to Tejo, her uniform displaying insignia that no alien military database could identify. "Your military leaders will be interested to know that conventional warfare is no longer possible against humanity," she said matter-of-factly. "We exist primarily in dimensional spaces that your weapons cannot reach. Our technology operates on principles that your physics cannot explain." To demonstrate her point, she gestured toward what appeared to be empty space. Instantly, a massive structure materialized, a city-sized habitat that had been invisible moments before. Then, just as quickly, it faded back into invisibility. "We cow can exist anywhere in the universe simultaneously," Sujin explained. "Distance has become meaningless to us. Time operates differently in our habitats. What you consider impossible, we have made routine." Back in Coalition space, military leaders were frantically trying to understand what they were seeing. Fleet Commander Kithera called an emergency meeting of all Coalition military chiefs. "Run the analysis again," she ordered her intelligence staff. "There has to be some explanation for what we're seeing." Commander Kriktal, recently promoted after Captain Dongsu's retirement, shook his head helplessly. "Ma'am, our best scientists say the structures in the broadcast violate every known law of physics. The energy requirements alone should be impossible. Then they're using some kind of trick. Holographic technology, perhaps? We considered that, but our sensors confirm the reports from our deep space missions. The construction projects our ships have observed match what we're seeing in this broadcast. Whatever they're doing, it's real." Dr. Ari joined the broadcast next, standing in what appeared to be a laboratory that existed inside a star. The nuclear fires burned around her without effect, held back by fields that bent space itself into protective barriers. "My former colleagues will recognize some of the research we've been conducting," she said, smiling at the camera. The quantum archaeology project I worked on with Dr. Velnara was just the beginning. We've now mapped the dimensional structure of reality itself and learned to manipulate it directly. She gestured to equipment that seemed to be built from crystallized mathematics. Machines whose very existence challenged the concept of what technology could be. We can now create matter from pure energy, fold space to connect distant points, and even manipulate the flow of time within localized areas. The implications hit alien scientists like a physical blow. If humans could manipulate time and space at will, then every advantage the coalition species thought they possessed meant nothing. Their fleets, their weapons, their entire civilizations existed only at humanity's sufferance. General Binwu appeared next, but not in any recognizable military setting. He stood on what appeared to be a planet's surface, but the horizon curved in impossible directions, and multiple suns burned in a sky that showed stars from different galaxies simultaneously. The coalition military will undoubtedly want to know about our defensive capabilities, he said calmly. We no longer maintain traditional military forces because traditional threats no longer apply to us. We exist in spaces your weapons cannot reach, operate in dimensions your minds cannot perceive. To demonstrate, he stepped backward and simply vanished. A moment later, he reappeared standing behind where he had been, as if he had walked around an invisible corner in empty space. We can be anywhere, anytime, in any form necessary, he continued. But more importantly, we have no need for conquest or conflict. We no longer compete for resources because we can create whatever we need from the fundamental building blocks of reality. The broadcast continued for hours, showing impossible vista after impossible vista. Humans living inside black holes, their habitats protected by mathematics made solid. Children playing in gardens where flowers grew in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Engineers casually building new universes in laboratory settings. Explorer Hyunwoo guided alien viewers through one of humanity's smaller construction projects, a habitat ring that existed partially outside normal space. This structure houses approximately 50 million humans, he explained. But from outside our dimensional space, it appears to be roughly the size of a small asteroid. Engineers so young demonstrated how humans now created matter directly from energy, assembling complex materials atom by atom according to mathematical principles that alien science couldn't grasp. We no longer need to mine, refine, or manufacture in traditional ways, she said. Everything we need can be created instantly from the quantum foam that underlies all reality. As the broadcast neared its end, Taeho returned to address the coalition directly. We want you to understand that this is not a threat or a demonstration of power meant to intimidate you. Humanity has simply evolved beyond the need for the type of relationships we once maintained. He paused, looking directly into the camera with expressions that seemed both human and something far beyond human understanding. The truce served its purpose, he continued. It gave us time to learn, to grow, and to transcend the limitations that once bound us. We are grateful for the lessons you taught us, even if those lessons were not what you intended to teach. The final scene showed Earth itself, but not as any alien had ever seen it. The planet existed simultaneously in dozens of different dimensional states, its surface showing environments that ranged from familiar terrestrial landscapes to realms of pure energy where matter and thought intermingled freely. We will continue to exist alongside you in the galaxy, Taeho concluded, but on levels you cannot reach and in ways you cannot comprehend. The age of human-alien cooperation has ended not because of hostility, but because we have grown beyond the need for such cooperation. The broadcast ended, leaving the Galaxy Council chambers in absolute silence. For the first time in galactic history, an entire species had not just achieved technological superiority, they had transcended the very concepts that other species used to understand reality itself. And somewhere in the hidden dimensions where humanity now made its home, they prepared for the next phase of their evolution, one that would take them even further beyond the comprehension of their former neighbors. The coalition's response was as predictable as gravity itself. Within hours of Taeho's broadcast ending, Emergency war councils convened on every major alien world. Fear and pride mixed into a toxic combination that drove the galaxy's greatest powers toward a decision that would prove their final and most catastrophic mistake. Fleet Commander Cathera stood before the assembled war chiefs of 17 species, her wings spread wide in a display of aggression. "This is clearly a deception," she declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. "No species can manipulate reality itself. They're using advanced holographic technology to frighten us into submission." Prime crystal Nexon pulsed with angry crimson light. "Our scientists confirm the energy readings are real. But real doesn't mean unstoppable. Every technology has weaknesses, every defense has flaws." The Grome war chief Grakthar slammed his massive fist on the strategy table. "They mock us with their tricks, show us cities and stars and gardens in space, but we have seen their worlds. We know where Earth is. Destroy their home planet and their illusions will crumble." Across Coalition space, the greatest military buildup in galactic history began. Every warship was recalled from patrol duties. Every weapon was charged to full power. Every soldier was placed on maximum alert. If humanity wanted to play with forces beyond their understanding, they would learn the price of such arrogance. Admiral Velkoth of the Karathi Deep Strike Fleet reviewed the battle plans with grim satisfaction. Operation Final Truth will deploy 4,000 ships against the Sol system simultaneously. Even if the humans have some new defensive technology, they cannot possibly stop such a massive assault. Captain Dongsu, recalled from retirement to lead the Vex stealth squadrons, felt less confident than his colleagues. "Sir, what if what we saw in the broadcast was real? What if they really have transcended our understanding of physics? Then, they'll die understanding physics they can't," Velkoth replied coldly. "Reality doesn't bend to anyone's will, not even humanity's." As the coalition fleets prepared for war, General Bin Wu sat in what appeared to be a simple office but was actually a command center existing simultaneously in 7 different dimensions. Through quantum-linked sensors, he monitored the alien military preparations with the detached interest of a scientist watching ants. 4,000 ships, he reported to the Human Command Council. Concentrated antimatter weapons, quantum torpedoes, and something they're calling a reality anchor, probably designed to prevent dimensional manipulation. President Kyung-min, who now existed as much as a pattern of living mathematics as a physical being, found the situation more sad than threatening. "They still don't understand, even after everything we showed them." Dr. Ari's voice came from a laboratory that existed inside the quantum foam between galaxies. "It's understandable, really. Their minds are trapped in 3-dimensional thinking. They can't conceive of existence beyond the physical limitations they've always known." Admiral Sujin prepared humanity's response from a space that had no fixed location in the universe. Her fleet existed everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, ready to demonstrate the vast gulf that now separated human capabilities from alien understanding. The Coalition Armada arrived at the edge of the Sol system with all weapons charged and shields at maximum. 4,000 of the most powerful warships ever built, spread across 1,000,000 kilometers of space. Their combined firepower capable of searing the life from a dozen worlds. Fleet Commander Cathara opened communications on all frequencies. "Attention, Earth. You will surrender immediately and submit to Coalition authority. Your deceptions end today." The response came not from Earth, but from what appeared to be empty space directly in front of the Coalition fleet. Engineer So Young materialized out of nothingness, standing in vacuum without protection, her voice carrying clearly through space without any technological assistance. "Greetings, Coalition forces," she said calmly, her words reaching every ship, simultaneously. "We appreciate your concern, but there seems to be a misunderstanding. You cannot threaten something that exists beyond your reach," Kithara snarled in fury. "Open fire. All ships maximum firepower. Show them the price of arrogance." 4,000 ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Energy beams that could vaporize mountains, antimatter warheads that could crack planets, and exotic weapons that manipulated fundamental forces struck. Nothing. The weapons passed harmlessly through So Young's image and continued into empty space beyond. Your weapons operate in three-dimensional space, So Young explained patiently as if teaching children. We exist primarily in higher dimensions now. What you're seeing is merely a projection. The Coalition commanders stared in disbelief as their most powerful weapons proved completely ineffective. But Kythera wasn't finished. Deploy the reality anchors. Lock them into normal space. Specially modified ships released energy fields designed to prevent dimensional manipulation. For a moment, the alien forces thought they had succeeded as So Young's image flickered. Then she smiled. Fascinating technology, she commented. But you're trying to anchor reality itself, which requires an understanding of what reality actually is. Unfortunately, your understanding is somewhat limited. Captain Dongsu watched his sensor displays with growing horror. The reality anchors were functioning perfectly according to their design specifications. But instead of trapping the humans in normal space, they seemed to be revealing just how far beyond normal space humanity had actually gone. "Sir," his sensor operator whispered, "I'm reading massive structures throughout this entire system. Ships, stations, habitats. They're everywhere, but they're not in our dimensional framework." As if responding to their detection, the hidden human presence began to reveal itself. Massive orbital habitats materialized around Jupiter, each one larger than Earth itself. Construction platforms appeared near Saturn, building structures that existed in folded space. Most disturbing of all, ships began emerging from dimensional pockets, not the sleek vessels they had seen in previous encounters, but something far more advanced. These weren't ships in any traditional sense, they were mobile spaces, pocket realities that could exist anywhere in the universe. Some appeared as geometric impossibilities, spheres with infinite interior space, cubes that were larger inside than outside. Others seemed to be built from pure mathematics, their forms shifting between equations and physical matter. General Binwu appeared standing on the hull of Kythera's flagship, his boots resting casually, on armor designed to withstand stellar temperatures. He spoke directly to the bridge crew through the ship's communication system without using any visible technology. "Commander Kythera," he said politely, "you seem upset. Perhaps we can discuss this calmly. How did you get aboard my ship?" Kythera demanded, her wings buzzing frantically. "Our shields are at maximum." "I walked here," Binwu replied simply. "Distance is no longer meaningful to us. Your ship exists in three-dimensional space. I exist in dimensions your geometry cannot describe." To demonstrate, he casually stepped sideways and vanished, only to reappear inside the ship's bridge. Then, he stepped backward and emerged outside the ship again, as if walls and vacuum were equally meaningless to him. "This is impossible," Kythera screeched. "Matter cannot behave this way." Dr. Aries' voice joined the conversation, speaking from somewhere inside the quantum structure of the ship's computer systems. "Actually, matter can behave any way consciousness directs it to behave, once you understand the relationship between observation and reality. We've learned to observe from outside the dimensional limitations that bind your species." The Coalition. Fleet found itself surrounded by phenomena that challenged every principle of science they understood. Human figures walked between ships through empty space. Weapons that fired automatically shut down as their targeting systems couldn't lock onto beings who existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Most terrifying of all, some crew members began reporting that their thoughts were being heard and answered by voices that came from everywhere and nowhere. Explorer Yunwu materialized in the center of the Coalition formation, standing in a small garden that somehow existed in the vacuum of space. Flowers bloomed around his feet, their roots drawing nutrients from folded dimensions where matter and energy obeyed different laws. "Your military forces are impressive," he observed, gesturing at the assembled fleet. 50 years ago, such a force would have been a serious threat to humanity. But you're fighting yesterday's war with yesterday's understanding of what war means. Admiral Su Jin's voice spoke directly into the minds of every Coalition crew member simultaneously. "We don't wish to harm you," she said gently. "But you need to understand that harm is no longer something you can inflict on us. We exist beyond your reach now." The demonstration that followed was both beautiful and terrifying. the human figures, began to show the coalition forces what transcendence actually meant. They moved through solid matter as if it were air, manipulated gravity by conscious will, and created complex machinery from pure thought. Most disturbing of all was when Dr. Minho appeared and began teaching.